to accept it. Anyone who could tame such a creature by strength alone was clearly far beyond mithril rank. As he realized that what they had discussed in that room was true, Igvarj's heart filled with anger. I don't know what country you're from, but don't get in my way. I can give you information if you want, but in exchange, go stand aside and wait. To Igvarj, it was as though someone had trespassed in his territory. He and his group had trained hard to fulfill their dreams, had slowly climbed the ranks after countless close brushes with death. It was only natural that they would be unhappy when somebody cut in all of a sudden and jumped several ranks. He would pull Mammon down if he had the chance. He would ruin Mammon's reputation with false rumors. That was what Igvarj had in mind when he had chosen to set out with Mammon. This was also why, when Mammon's black-clad companion showed up and declared she was going to kill Igvarj and his group, he could fall back with no hesitation at all. Though he was afraid, he still moved faster than anyone else. He was driven by the malicious desire to spread bad news about Mammon, about Ains to the guild. Serves you right, I'll make it back alive for sure, and then I'll disclose everything about you to the world. He did not know how Mammon was connected to the vampire. However, he was sure he could steer the rumors in that direction, though he knew that terrible weapon might scythe down on him at any time, though he knew his life might be in danger. Igvarj laughed, unable to suppress the emotions surging up in his heart. He did not care about his comrades at all. No, if they became decoys that let him live on, so much the better. I will reach the top. I will attain the orichalcum, then the adamantite rank, and become a renowned hero. There was no need for anybody strong beside himself. His companions were all stepping stones on his climb to the summit. He would be the true hero who saved the world, like the 13 heroes of the past. This was the dream Igvarj had ever since he had heard the saga of the 13 heroes in his youth from a bard in his village. But then, there was a man who was going to stand in the way of his dreams, was going to surpass him and his team. Worse, he was doing it as a part-time job. That was unforgivable. He ran and he ran and he ran. The fact that Igvarj could run at top speed through the forest without his face turning red or panting was proof that he was indeed a mithril-ranked adventurer. However, ripples coursed through Igvarj's heart, big ones. Where is this place? I circled around because I was afraid they would have set up an ambush near the horses, Igvarj felt that this was right, and his sense of direction told him that much. However, his sixth sense said otherwise. He would not get lost even if this was his first time in any particular forest. However, for some reason, he was still uncertain of his location. I must be imagining things, he thought. Though, this did not feel like his imagination at all. However reluctant, he had to acknowledge that this was real. Am I lost? But, how could a forest stalker like myself get lost? Igvarj's vocation was one which specialized in outdoor movement. In a sense, the woods were like his backyard. However, a strange, unsettling feeling filled him. This forest now seemed like the gaping maw of some vast carnivorous beast. It's just like a maze. Unease and anxiety welled up inside, as a change came over the forest which should have been completely familiar to him. And then he heard the sound of quiet rustling. Igvarj recalled the black-clad executioner from just now, and jerked his head back to look at the source of the sound. He saw a child's head poking out from behind a tree. That child was a dark elf, closely related to the elves, who were humanoids which lived in the depths of the forest. Why is there a dark elf here? He had heard that the large settlements of the dark elves were located in the great forests to the south, where no man had set foot. Dark elves were the sort who lived far away from civilized areas. In that respect, they were different from the forest elves, who traded with humanity. There was something strange about this dark elf, who was also a child. It filled Igvarj's heart with doubt. Just then, the child nervously stepped forward. It's a girl. She was dressed in female attire, and the frightened look on her delicate, beautiful face aroused Igvarj's sadistic desires. Although he wondered if this girl had been sent by Mammon, the two of them had completely different attitudes, and so he laughed the idea off as impossible. More importantly, if this girl was a dark elf that lived in this forest, she would surely know a safe route out of it. In addition, if that black-armored woman caught up to him, he could use the girl as a hostage. With that in mind, Igvarj decided to try and get the girl to obey him, and so he took a step forward. Oi! He intentionally pitched his voice low, filling it with notes of menace, and startled the dark elf girl into taking a step back. I am sorry. Igvarj chuckled coldly as he saw the nervous look on her face. He was confident that his plan would work. No need to be sorry. There's something I want to ask you, so come over here. About that. I am sorry. A question mark seemed to appear over Igvarj's head as he wondered why she was apologizing again. However, the ebony staff in the dark elf girl's hand had already swung towards him. The vegetation turned to snares, which securely bound Igvarj's entire body. He trembled in shock. How could a mithril-ranked adventurer like himself fail to stop the magic of a brat like her? Even after struggling with all his might, the plants refused to budge. As anxiety and panic filled his heart, Igvarj raised his voice and shouted, You little bitch. If you don't let me go, I'll kill you. Oi. The dark elf nervously lowered her head and advanced toward Igvarj. It was then that Igvarj realized her outfit was quite exceptional. Both her clothes and armor were masterfully made, of the sort which Igvarj himself would not be able to acquire. In addition, her eyes, the memory of something an elf friend of his had once said, surfaced hazily in his mind. However, before the memory could fully take shape, a shadow fell across his face. The girl forcefully swung her staff. Though her face still looked afraid, there was no emotion in her eyes. She did not feel anything about what she was about to do to Igvarj. It was as though her fearful attitude was just an act she had been directed to put on. He superimposed the form of the girl before him over that of the black-armored woman from just now. Wait a minute. What are you trying to? Diamond suit. Albedo arrived just as Mare's staff fell on the man's head. His helmet deformed under the impact of the staff, and the skull below caved in, while his eyeballs popped free of his head from the force of the tremendous impact. His head was thoroughly smashed, like a watermelon during a Sukawari game at the beach in summer. Thanks for your hard work. About that, Albedo-sama, it's over. Is this fine? Albedo removed her helmet, and smiled to Mare as he looked up nervously to her. It was perfect. Granted, it was a somewhat messy way of killing him, but it's fine. Ain-sama will surely praise you for this. Really? Ehehe. The delighted dark elf looked to the corpse, and then Albedo asked, How about the other one? He's been taken care of. I dragged the corpse behind a tree. Is that so? Beautifully done. Then, Mare, can you help me bring the corpses back to Nazarick? I got it. Albedo smiled once more to the smiling boy who was giggling as he held his blood-stained staff. He was such an honest boy. Still, he would do well to be more open. Part 6. It is finished, Ain-sama, Albedo said, her helmet held at her waist. Ains nodded as he heard this. Now, there were no witnesses to Shaltir's identity. With his armor gone, Ains felt quite at ease as he replied, Good work. How about the recovery of the bodies? I have already asked Mare to send them back to Nazarick. I see. Well then, that problem's taken care of. Sadly, they were killed by the vampire, so we, the survivors, must continue pressing on. Understood. Then, Ain-sama, what is that trembling creature which cowers under your cloak? Ains turned and found that as expected, although it was quite hard to understand why such a large creature would do such a thing, Hamsuk was clinging to his cloak. Its large, beady eyes were moist, and its fur stood in terror. Of course, it was Albedo which it feared. Think of it as my pet. I have named it Hamsuk. What? That thing actually has the position coveted by all the denizens of Nazarick. Hamsuk. This is Albedo, my faithful servant who rules my domain of the great underground tomb of Nazarick. In other words, she is your boss. Go, introduce yourself to her. This lowly one is, as my lord has already said, known as Hamsuk. I place myself in your care, Albedo Dono. Pleased to meet you, Hamsuk. All right, introductions are over. From now on, I will be going onward with Albedo. Narbril, return to Nazareth with Hamsuk and Mare, and pay attention to the object I put in your mouth. Yes. Narbril's reply was quite energetic. Hamsuk swirled the object it had received in the graveyard within its mouth, and it asked Narbril in a garbled way, "Ununderstood, my lord. And this thing is really noisy. I have an important question to ask." Quiet down in there. Then, this one has a question to ask. Narbril Dono, will this one be in danger? Will this one be eaten up? Since you are now Ain Sama's pet, you will not be eaten without authorization. I will inform everybody, there is no need to worry. Ain's face did not move, but he was smiling. It would seem that letting them travel together in Irantal had improved their relationship. All right, then let's go, Albedo. Understood. As Narbril and Hamsuk watched, Ains and Albedo headed toward Shaltir's location. Ah, yes, Ain Sama. The corpses of those men reminded me of the words you spoke to me in the throne room. Shall we recover the corpses of the man and woman which you eliminated last night, Ain Sama? Well, about that. Just as he was about to repeat what he had told Narbril last night about, we need to pin the blame on them as the masterminds of this incident, Albedo continued speaking and interrupted him. They might have learned something while fighting you, Ain Sama. Since there is magic which can bring the dead back to life, the best course of action would have been to immediately recover the corpses. Or was there some special reason for doing otherwise? Ain's breathing stopped. No, he had not needed to breathe in the first place. Albedo had hit the nail on the head. Crap. Resurrection magic existed in this world. In other words, dead men could tell tales, better than what any autopsy would say. Ains recalled the events of that night. He thought about his real identity, the name of Nazareth, and Narbril's abilities. That man and woman knew it all, especially that woman. This was too fatal of a mistake to be written off with the word mistake. All he could do was hope that nobody could use resurrection magic, but according to the information gained from the Sunlight Scripture, there were people within the slain theocracy who could use such magic. In addition, there was a high chance that top-ranked, adamantite, adventurers possessed spells like that, and high-ranking officials in a country might secretly command people who were capable of such magic. If that were the case, the higher UPS in Irantal would look for people to use magic on them once they concluded that the deceased possessed such important information. Given that what they had done would have shaken Irantal, it would be natural for said higher UPS to want to know more. Ains felt his non-existent heart beating at a breakneck pace. What should I do now? It went without saying that he had to recover the bodies as quickly as possible. However, who should he send? Ains had told Narbril not to bother with the corpses. Should he publicly tell her that was a mistake? No, I shouldn't say anything. He should avoid saying anything that might lower their faith to him further, as long as he did not know why Shaltir had betrayed him. He had to remain calm in a situation like this. Ains now knew why the superiors in his company were unwilling to admit their mistakes. With a prayer in his heart, he made a decision. Indeed, that is correct. However, I do have a special reason for leaving those bodies be. Calm yourself, everything dances within the palm of my hand, the matter of Shaltir aside. I see. As expected of you, Ain Sama. I see you have already anticipated the developments I had in mind. It seems I have spoken too much, and I apologize for that. Come to think of it, why did you not use resurrection magic at all, Ain Sama? It would allow you to question dead humans and the like while gathering information. A very off-key squeak of surprise escaped Ains. Did I not mention it? Then, have you heard of Demiurge's healing experiments? Yes, I have. Sever all 4 limbs. Heal them with magic, those experiments, right? Indeed. Then, another question for you. Do you know where a resurrection spell has to be applied? Is it not on the corpse? I don't think so, at least, I don't think so, no? Albedo went silent alongside Ains, and then her eyes sparkled. Ah. It seems I misspoke. Ains-sama, you are correct. It is not on the corpse, but the soul. Indeed. In Demiurge's experiments, the severed limbs vanished and grew from the body once more. Now, when you cast a spell on the soul, what will happen to the body? In Yggdrasil, one could choose to come back to life at one of 4 locations when casting an XP-draining resurrection spell. The first was at the corpse itself. The second was at the entrance of the dungeon or other location. The third was in a nearby safe town. And the fourth would be at a designated respawn point within a guild base or other stronghold. That being the case, where would people in this world come back to life when resurrection magic was cast on them? The scenario which Ains most wanted to avoid was the fourth kind, coming back to life at a designated home point. If Nigan came back to life in the slain theocracy, Ains would have essentially resurrected an enemy, filled him full of useful information, and then kindly released him back into the wild. This was why he could not conduct experiments with resurrection magic, but in return it had led to these undesired consequences. I see, so that's how it is. We must take note of these things. As expected of you, Ains-sama, I am awed by your keen insight. As he watched Albedo lower her head in admiration, Ains immediately shook his head and replied, pay it no heed. Although, I do need to find a place to conduct an experiment like that, Then, once we're ready, we'll set out. Under Albedo's guidance, Ains strode into the forest. Diamond suit, the two of them reached a large clearing within the woods. One could say this scene was filled with a rustic charm, but in the middle of it stood something that was completely out of place here, a person in a suit of crimson full-plate armor. It was a fantastic sight as it glittered under the sunlight, but the stink of gore it gave off ruined the atmosphere. It was Shaltir. She looked exactly like what he had seen on the crystal monitor, right down to her seemingly unchanged posture. For a moment, Ains wondered if he was still looking at her image. However, it felt real enough. The reason was that was the stench of blood carried to him by the wind. Ains breathed in and out repeatedly. Of course, his body could not breathe, so he was just going through the motions, but perhaps he felt something which might have led to those breaths. Shaltir, Ains said to her. He felt that his voice should have been stern and commanding, and yet the words he had spoken were hoarse and quiet and pathetic. Yet, there was no response. Before he called out to Shaltir again, Ains carefully sized her up. Shaltir was not ignoring him. Rather, her crimson eyes were open and vacuous, giving the impression that there was no consciousness there. Albedo, who was standing beside him, grew furious at Shaltir's attitude. Shaltir. Not only do you not have an explanation for your deeds, but you compound it with rudeness to Ains-sama. Albedo, shut up. Keep quiet. Do not move. Do not approach Shaltir. Ains' harsh words stopped Albedo in her tracks as she was about to advance on Shaltir. This was a tone he very rarely took with the NPCs made by his friends, but on this occasion, it could not be helped. That was how shocked Ains was by Shaltir's current condition. Could this be, is it even possible? Unbelievable. Ains compared scenes from his past to the Shaltir he saw before him, and shock ran through him. At the same time, his emotion suppression kicked in, allowing him to make a calm decision, and realize that the possibility he had in mind was the most likely one. Ains addressed Albedo. He wanted to share his thoughts, and by doing so, acknowledge the reality of the situation. I'm sure of it now. Shaltir is under mind control. Is this due to the reason you mentioned in the throne room, Ains-sama? I can't be sure just yet, judging from the information supplied by the sunlight scripture, and my own experience with this sort of thing. I'm certain this is some form of mind control. Of course, I don't know how or why the undead Shaltir was controlled. Could this be the result of some phenomenon unique to this world? Ains folded his arms and carefully examined the bolt-upright Shaltir. Some mysterious person attempted to control Shaltir's mind, but something happened before that person could issue any orders. Perhaps they were struck down just as they made their move. In any case, I'm pretty sure that was what left her standing here by herself, without any orders. However, she will probably defend herself against anyone who gets too close, or who attacks her. Most evil-aligned NPCs will do just that, so don't get too close. Understood. However, we will not be able to drag her back to Nazarick like this. That will be fine as long as Shaltyr's attempted controller is dead, but if that person is still alive, it will be dangerous to wait here. An accurate consideration. Shaltyr had been mind-controlled by something. It might be something unique to this world, something that could work on the undead. If that were the case, Ains might end up getting mind-controlled as well if he stayed here. Although this item is quite expensive, we'd best dispel Shaltyr's mind control soon as possible. Ains' fingers moved. One of the rings he wore, a plain and undecorated item, glowed with a silver light, and displayed 3 meteors on its face. One could say this was the mightiest ring Ains had in his possession. That is, upon seeing Albedo's puzzled expression, Ains' face, though his fleshless face could not move, was filled with a proud smile as he spoke the ring's name. This is Shooting Star, an extremely rare item that allows its bearer 3 uses of the super tier magic, Wish upon a Star. This was the gotcha item that Ains had spent his year-end bonus to obtain. Among the guild members, only Ains and Yumeko could boast ownership of such an unbelievably rare item. However, this ring was less of an ultra-rare item than a cash item which symbolized foolishness, on account of how much money he had spent on the game in order to obtain it. Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit. The super tier spell, imbued within the ring, Wish upon a Star, was one which consumed a percentage of one's XP bar to randomly generate an